Okay.
Okay. Is it just me? It says you started screen sharing, but I'm not seeing your slide yet.
It's
Yeah, oh, okay. Right
Ah,
now I see it.
I am sharing my screen. Did you want to share your screen,
perfect.
Kristen?
That's
Yeah,
perfect now.
okay.
Okay. Emily, why don't you kick us off?
Okay. Hi, good morning. It is good to see all of you here. We're excited to talk with you all about the roadmaps that we've been working on. So we have supporting student success, C2C roadmaps. We're going to talk a little bit about what the roadmaps are and then speak about the benefits, some of the best practices, and then we'll have a little bit of discussion towards the end of our presentation. But before we get to all of that, some brief introductions. I know lots of folks know folks on this call, but there are some unfamiliar faces to me. I suspect that's the same for some of you. So we thought we could start by going around and just briefly saying our name, where we're at on campus, and then one word to describe how you are today. I'll start and then I'll let my fellow presenters introduce themselves and then we'll go around to the audience. So, my name is Emily Estrada. I am an associate dean in the College of Liberal Arts, Sciences, and Engineering, otherwise known as CLASE. And I am feeling, I'm going to say, locked today. This is a word I learned from students. It means focused and ready to work. I will pass it on to Kristen.
Good morning. I am Kristin Croyle. I'm the Dean for Class C, and this morning I am feeling grateful for having my amazing colleagues today. Um, I'm grateful for all of you, but particularly today, Emily and Jackie and John. And Jackie.
So Jackie Wells, she, her pronouns, and I'm in career services as the Associate Director of Career Education. One word to describe today, I would say inspired. We did some strategic planning this morning in our office. I'm jumping right out of that into this. And so great way to kind of share out some cool things. I'm going to popcorn it over to Mallory since she was actually involved in a lot of this work too. So who are you, Mallory?
Hi, everyone. My name is Mallory Bauer. I'm the Director of Experiential Learning here on campus. And this morning I am feeling hopeful. I checked on my plants this morning and my cucumbers are popping up.
Mhm.
I'm going to popcorn it to Zoe.
Hi, I'm Zoe Miswich. I'm in the math department and I'm feeling happy to be at the start of the summer. And I'll pass it over to Lynn.
Hello, everyone. I'm Lynn Blanchfield. I'm in history. I'm also the Fulbright program advisor. And today I'm feeling motivated. Awesome. I'm going to pass it on to Scott.
Morning, all. Scott Furlong, Department of Politics. I am, I guess I'll say, interested to hear what you all have to say today. So, thank you. And who's left to move my screen around here? Let me pass it to
I
Dan.
didn't go yet. Yeah. Hi, everyone. Dan Wood from music. I teach audio production courses. And I'm also the advisement coordinator for the music department starting in the fall. So I'm very interested as well in the curriculum to careers connections that I'm hearing a lot more about on campus. So I feel like for a while we didn't really do too much of that. Like, what's the next step after, graduation? Oh, I need to get a job and a career. So I'm interested to see what you have worked out. Thanks.
Let me go first. My name is Javad Nusrat Awadi, Department of Economics, and I'm feeling like tired. I have not slept like 2 months. I have a newborn baby, so but all good. I don't know who would be next. Anyone?
How about we've got Hisham and Maddie left?
Sham.
Good morning. This is Hisham. I am a visiting scholar at the School of Education, SUNY Oswego. I am ready to learn a new experiences today. Thank you.
I think we've got John and Maddie left. If you all want to introduce yourselves.
Okay, John Kane in economics and SELP, and I'm feeling relieved that I don't have to present this hour.
Oh.
I can go. I'm Maddie. I am a grad student going into my second year, and I work in Cell as John's grad assistant. And I am feeling happy that I get to enjoy the sun later.
Yes. Thank you all for that. The sun is always something to be grateful for. Cucumbers, Mallory, surely a sign of warmer weather in store for us for a few months at least, hopefully. Thank you for all of that. It's good to see you all again. Thank you so much for coming to our presentation. We wanted to start with a little bit of a writing exercise, get those mental juices going. So we have created free write. A lot of you probably maybe know what this is based on your experiences in the classroom. So a few prompts here, a few questions that we'd like for you to think about for 1 minute, 60 seconds. Feel free to put your responses in the chat if you want to. I'll also ask for some responses. So if you'd rather just share that way, that works as well. So the questions include, what is some of the critical guidance you received as an undergraduate other than which courses to take? How did you receive the guidance and who did it come from? So 1 minute to kind of sit and think and write, and then we'll open it up for some conversation. About 20 more seconds. Okay, so that was a minute. A few responses are coming in on the chat. Is there anybody who'd like to share with the group? I think Kristin is going to maybe call on folks. I can't see everybody too well since I'm
Yeah,
sharing my screen.
absolutely. And yeah, feel free to join in chat. Yeah, also, Zoe, you didn't get any advice. I'm so sorry to hear that.
It's okay. It was a
I sat by
straightforward.
Yeah, I sat by a really fabulous undergrad student at one point who said, "You should join the side club. I'm the president." And that was like life-changing for me because they were giving each other advice all the time in that setting. My brother told me how to connect with a faculty member because he was a bit farther along than I was. Lynn, you want to share your
Sure. So my first semester of college, I was a biology major. And I took a botany class, and I had this brilliant young professor who gave me some really great advice about writing because I was struggling with my writing that first semester. And he offered me some very critical advice and correction, and said, "You need some help with your writing," and I did. Um, and as a result of that, I now pay it forward to my students. And then I say, okay, I'm going to give you a chance. Here's what we're going to do. Um, and my professor is still around and I still see him. So it was just an amazing experience. It was done in person, um, not in his office. I think we were sort of wandering around the campus, which was good. That was a nice way to do it. So there we go.
Jackie.
So I can really see myself back at orientation. We had these papers that we had open, and there was a lot of choices, and it was overwhelming. And I knew kind of a little bit about gen ed, and there was an upper class student that was mentoring as a Laker leader, orientation leader back then. I'm like, well, what science did I take? Well, like if you don't not really into science, like take this one. You know, these instructors are great. And so I was like, that's my first aha moment, and be able to. And they were right. Actually, it was a great class. And then another great experience down the road. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do next, and my assistant hall director was like, "Well, why don't you stay? You'd be a great assistant hall director, and you should apply for your, MBA while you're here." And I'm like, "Yes, yes, let's do that." And actually, that was a path into higher education for me as well.
I don't recall any advice from faculty about career or grad school, except for when my brother helped me figure out how to approach faculty for research. The PI I was working with did try and recruit me into that program, which I was not interested in, but did not provide any advice about how to get into a different program. But the Psych Club did. So some of the critical advice that all of us receive and our current students often comes through informal channels, and through informal timing. So if I hadn't, I know that if I hadn't been in the psychology club at the right time, I would have not gotten into grad school because I was so clueless about even how to apply and how to look for programs that I would have missed all the deadlines. So I would have been at least a year or two later, and I don't know if I would have been able to match to as strong of a program. So that's important for me to remember because informal channels that have kind of this richness are unreliable for our students and unpredictable. And they tend to privilege students who come from backgrounds of privilege. So the fact that my brother helped me figure out how to connect with a faculty member is definitely privilege because I had a sibling who was a college student. So part of the work that we're doing here is to make this full range of advising more accessible and available to all students on demand at the moment that they would look at it. So thank you for sharing your thoughts. Emily, you want to move us forward? You're muted.
Okay, thank you. So we've already talked a little bit about this, but we wanted to start by giving folks a kind of more concrete definition of what roadmaps are. Kristin, I think you were going to take this slide.
Yeah. So roadmaps roadmap is a flexible term. So when you hear other institutions or other programs talk about roadmaps, it can mean a variety of things. Kind of a prototypical roadmap is stepwise, often has each semester represented. So it's a path instead of a list. Instead of saying, here are the 120 hours that you need to take, or here's a list of different activities, it's a literal map that says, do this, then do this, then do this, usually laid out by semesters. Curriculum roadmaps are typically highly detailed, and they are student facing. Advisors can use them as well, but they're written for the student to be able to understand, and they translate complex degree requirements into a sequential pathway. Integrated milestones can be used in roadmaps that go beyond the list of curriculum. So curricular milestones could be things like you should do 30 hours a year, because if you do 30 hours a year, you'll graduate in 4 years. A different example of a curricular milestone would be make sure if you're a science major, make sure you take X or Y math by this time, otherwise you're going to be late in these other steps. Or make sure that you apply for graduation at this point, or make sure you get at least a C or above in this class, or you can't move on. So curricular milestones can be integrated, but also roadmaps can integrate other types of milestones, career preparation actions, high impact experiential learning, all together. And part of this is also to package really fabulous advice that a student would get from a very experienced advisor. So many of you are very experienced. Some of you would call yourself an advisor, and some of you might not, but many of you are very experienced advisors where if a sophomore in your major comes to you and says, I'm confused, what should I be doing now? Not only, you wouldn't just say, take this class, take this class. You'd be saying, well, you're also a sophomore. So, what are you thinking about in terms of your minor? And are you starting to think about what internships might work for you in the future? And what kinds of careers might you be thinking about? What kind of classes might fit with that? And have you had some deep writing experience yet? Or are you working with the faculty in detail? You would be having all of those conversations. So how to build that into a single tool. Just to note that the roadmaps that we developed in CLASE are inspired by approaches at different places. There are different approaches for roadmaps at different institutions. The Georgia State system developed very strong roadmaps going back 15 years with also strong guidance on how to develop them. The CUNY system also has developed some good roadmaps that we took a look at.
Yeah. Thank you for that. So, wrong direction. There we go. Jackie is going to talk a little bit about the specific different types of roadmaps. Kristin has alluded to some of this, and then I will show an example of the type of roadmap that we've developed with CLASE.
Was there anything else we want to talk about too with kind of what we already have in place with like degree work and such too?
Oh, that's right. I blew through that.
There we go.
Yep.
So the tools that we already have in place on campus prior to developing the roadmaps. One is DegreeWorks, and those of you who advise students have been in DegreeWorks many times. DegreeWorks has a lot of advantages. It lists the curriculum that the student should be following. It is adaptive in the sense that it takes into account the courses that the student has already taken. It's good at displaying which courses apply in which area. The downsides of DegreeWorks are it's very difficult to map semester by semester into the future. It's laborious. It's also a closed system. So even people on campus who have access, it's sometimes difficult to see a student's DegreeWorks profile. But if a prospective student wants to take a look, you can't give off-campus people access. So parents can't see it. Prospective students can't see it. A transfer student who hasn't transferred yet cannot see it. So it's secret, basically. We also have some individual program documents, some of which are very good, some of which are, So computer science, for example, their students are oriented towards path thinking. So they have a path diagram of their curriculum. If you're not a computer science student, you look at it, it's kind of confusing and overwhelming because there are a lot of different colored boxes and arrows and things. But if you're in computer science, it is incredibly helpful. But doesn't cover all the needs of co-curricular advising. We also have the undergraduate catalog, so students can look at that, and external people, like prospective students, can look at them, and articulation documents. So if a student is doing an associate's degree in science at a community college, we may have articulated it to one of our bachelor's degrees in a science area. Theoretically, that tells a student how the courses are going to transfer. In reality, they're incredibly confusing. They're written more for institutional, almost legalese. They're very difficult for students to interpret. So they're not particularly useful for for student use. So those are the tools that we have in place right now. Recognizing the way that we wanted to integrate all the different types of kind of time-based advice, curriculum, career preparation, experiential learning, self-development. When we were starting this work at the in fall semester, I invited a working group of advising of career services, experiential learning, and also went back and forth with the department chairs and CLASE for feedback and structure of the documents. And that was an important step because oftentimes when we work together on things, it needs to be legitimate work together in which people are actually at the table together instead of just saying, we designed this thing. I would feel badly and embarrassed if I went to Jackie and said, I decided that career services would have this advice for students. So here is this thing I made that I think that you would say. That would be ridiculous because Jackie is an expert, as her colleagues are. So it makes much more sense for us to invite her in at the beginning as a representative of career services and as a national leader in career development to say, we want you at the beginning to be able to put your insights in. And the same goes for our incredible colleagues in advising. So this was developed, the structure that we followed for our curriculum to career maps was developed very thoughtfully in collaboration with our excellent staff and faculty on campus.
Great, thank you. So Jackie is going to talk a little bit about the different types of roadmaps now.
And so as we were having conversations around the table, there was opportunities, in addition to being able to have faculty with expertise in the curriculum, take a look at, each semester and each year of what's important, milestones for folks to go through with the different tracks and prereqs, as well as gateway courses. We also had the opportunity then to, think about the development of the student when it comes to their co-curricular and career readiness milestones. So, when should, students start, thinking about different aspects of their experiential learning, connecting with different support services. So there's tidbits and advice throughout of, hey, here's something you should be thinking about. And so there may be, opportunities to, study abroad. So you don't, think about that the day before you want to go. There's, classes you need to set aside. If you want to do experiences abroad, all things that you need to do ahead of time. So it's not, oftentimes, something you just do in a semester. You kind of plan ahead and plan that out, and having conversations early and often are important to be able to make sure you can fit that in while you're, here as a student, as well as, feedback and advice. It's very overwhelming to, think about the job at the end and not have to start the conversations in the beginning, to feel confident about the degree program you're in and types of experiences that you are going to make you competitive, but also help you explore and make sure that you're making an informed decision moving forward in your career path. And the experiences that are going to get your foot in the door are often require that you have, different curriculum already developed in order to apply that learning, and experiential learning, but also who you need to know, that social capital. So being able to think strategically about engaging in career events and opportunities expo on campus, and know how can you involve even early on in your first year, who to connect with and how, and what are the spaces and how can you get to those resources. So really making sure that it's equitable and accessible for all students really was on the forefront of our conversations. And Mallory, feel free to jump in and even put stuff in the chat too, because her and I were in on these conversations, but also share back with our teams the different milestones and what are some important things that we can include here to make sure all students are aware of and have access to the opportunities and the information and the resources and the social capital as well. And to give you some insight what that means, because I could talk all day about it, but Emily is going to show an example too of what one of the roadmaps looks like for one of the programs on campus.
Yes, so with all that build up, talking about what roadmaps are and how amazing they are, I'm going to walk us through one of what I consider to be an exemplar roadmap that was developed within CLASE. So, just to kind of reiterate the way that the process worked, Kristin worked collaboratively with folks from Career Services, the Advising Center, Experiential Learning, to develop a template based on different things that she pulled together. And then departments and other groups actually filled it in to make it more specific for their program. So this is Anthropology's BA College to Career Roadmap. That's the C2C. That's a part of the title for this presentation. You'll see up here at the top, we start with some pretty basic information, total credits required, the major credit requirements for that program, a link to the undergraduate catalog. Up here at the top, you'll also see examples of the careers that anthropology majors might find themselves in, the skills that they're developing within the program, and then lots of links to various resources on campus. Scrolling down to give you kind of a broader overview, these roadmaps are developed on a year and semester sequential basis. So we have starting, of course, with year one, semester one. On the left-hand side of the document, you'll see things that are more curriculum based, so the courses that students should take during that semester. And then on the right-hand side, you'll see things that are more about career development or experiential learning. Under each of the groupings here, departments have included an insider tip to help students kind of get that advising that is often more informal in nature, as Kristin was talking about earlier. So year one, semester one is here. Scrolling down, I wanted to point out here is a really great insider tip that Anthropology developed. So encouraging students to connect with different faculty in the department with their research projects, some links here so that students can actively research what might look good for them. Also over here on this side, you'll see something encouraging anthropology majors to volunteer in one of these labs. So really trying to get students to engage in those experiential learning opportunities in their first year. And I think that sometimes first year students are a little bit hesitant to seek those opportunities out, but to have those types of things on a document like this, I think can go a long way in hopefully helping them not be as intimidated to pursue these types of opportunities. So going down, we have year two. I will say that something that I think was a little bit challenging with the roadmaps for programs and then for the review process as well had to do with the formatting. It was important, we thought, that as these were developed, that the years stayed on one page. And so that kind of took a lot of tweaking. That's just kind of some information on the practicalities of how this was developed. So year two, semester one, again, courses, and then more career and experiential learning here. Scrolling down, I also thought that this insider tip here under year two, semester two, encouraging students to think about the archaeology field school. For a lot of students, if this information isn't provided in a document like this, they may not get it in other ways. Like we've talked about, this is one of the major benefits of the roadmaps is that it makes this information more accessible to more students, so helping to achieve those more equitable outcomes. Going on to year three, so this is the junior year. There starts to be some more explicit conversation about postgraduate goals, about making sure students are really thinking about their next step, developing their career materials, if that's something that they envision as their next step post graduation, and then getting all the way here to semester 4. Another insider tip, asking or encouraging students to apply for a SCAT grant to support their research. What I thought was really neat about what they did here, so they're referencing this capstone course that is then a part of year 4, semester 2. This is the capstone course that's referenced here. And so anthropology did a really good job at kind of thoughtfully thinking through what those milestones might look like for their students and what the sequencing could be. All the way through the very end, where again, one of the last insider tips you see here is for students to update their resume with the presentation they gave in their capstone course. A lot of our programs did amazing work with their roadmaps. And again, anthropology, I think they just did a really good job at kind of thinking about the sequencing and providing some very personalized information about their program. I'm happy to go back to this if you all wanted to take a closer look at it whenever we get to the end of the presentation. For now, I'm going to transition back to the slideshow. Here we are. So you've heard all of us kind of talk a little bit about the benefits of the roadmaps. So I'm going to go through those now a little bit more explicitly. So one of the
Actually, I'm
biggest
just going
benefits.
to jump in because I realized we didn't talk about timeline, and some people might be wondering, like, where are these? So we developed the model in the fall. Departments and units started to populate different pieces. The review process, has been somewhat laborious, let's say. So thank you to Emily for reviewing them in great detail, and the departments have been revising. So the intention is that these will be up and available for students by fall semester. So entering students by fall will be able to see them. A few departments that I'm aware of that really ran with it have already made them available during things like open houses. So the reason you haven't seen these yet is because they're not finalized, but they will be finalized by fall. Thank you, Emily.
Yeah, thank you for that. And Jackie is going to put a link to that anthropology roadmap into the chat window in case folks wanted to take a closer look at it on their own. So one of the biggest benefits of the roadmaps is that it helps to reduce choice overload. As I think we are all aware of, higher education catalogs and degree requirements can be really overwhelming to students. They can be overwhelming to faculty and staff, let alone to a student who is new to campus. And so these roadmaps help to simplify those complex graduation guidelines into clear sequential steps. The visual aspect of those sequential steps, I think, is really powerful and has the potential to be especially impactful for students' experiences. Having those steps mapped out as they are on this roadmap, I think helps to keep students focused and prevents them potentially from registering for unnecessary costly classes. It can really help make graduation or that path towards graduation more efficient. These roadmaps also help to boost early momentum. We know that one of the strongest predictors of college success is early academic momentum right from the start. And so making sure that students know what those critical gateway requirements are, what the prerequisites look like for their programs, helps to keep them on that path from the beginning. And hopefully, as they clear those early hurdles, helps to keep that momentum up for them as they progress through their program. As I've already mentioned, these roadmaps help to create a more efficient path towards graduation, hopefully minimizing scheduling friction. I suspect a lot of us have come across late juniors, maybe even seniors who've realized that they somehow managed to miss a critical course in their first or second year of study. And sometimes that can cause a major kink in what they're trying to do or how they're trying to progress. And so these roadmaps hopefully will prevent that from happening, or at least give students the ability to kind of see what that clear path forward is. I think Jackie is going to talk a little bit more about some of the benefits of the roadmaps.
You bet. And so, it's all about transparency as well. And I think about, even as Emily was talking of like how to eat an elephant. And so breaking it down into digestible parts makes it easier for students to understand. And especially, with the information that goes along with, the advisement and the insider tips and, information about the process and what the requirements are. Really helps students to kind of understand and take ownership of their degree program while they're here, in the hopes of being able to then transform, advisement. Even as we're going into this new model, being able to elevate those connections and demystify, as well as be able to have meaningful conversations and be on the same page. So that way, it's equitable for every student that is, connecting with not just their advisors, but also, folks that are supporting them throughout their program here, earning academic credit through experiential learning and through career services, being able to map out that hidden curriculum. So on the forefront of all that we do is providing equitable access to information, resources, services, and social capital. As well. And it's really an opportunity to be explicit about, what that means and what that looks like, for folks that, don't have, those connections that we talked about in the very beginning, that site club that said, here's what you should do. This isn't a hall director that says, hey, have you thought about this? So being able to make sure and ensure that, folks have that mentorship and advisement that's equitable across the board too. So I'm going to pass the mic back over to Emily.
Great. Thank you. So very quickly, I was going to run through some of the best practices associated with these curriculum and career experiential roadmaps. Kind of following with what Jackie was just talking about, democratizing the educational experience. It's important that when these roadmaps are put together, when they're created, that they are designed from a student's viewpoint. And so as I was reviewing the roadmaps that programs submitted, I went through and made sure to clarify any jargon that may have been in it. So, for example, some programs wanted to get very specific about which gen ed requirements students might consider in specific semesters. So they would write something like Gen Ed DEISJ. While folks inside the university or faculty and staff have probably an understanding of what that is, a new student here at the university, or maybe even a third or fourth year student, wouldn't immediately know what that was referring to. So, kind of eliminating acronyms and avoiding jargon, really trying to make sure that these roadmaps were as accessible as they could be for students. Another best practice, as we've kind of alluded to here, would be the sequential element. So clearly laying things out semester by semester, clearly indicating prerequisites, and then course sequencing. My home department is sociology. We don't have a lot of sequencing that's really important, but we do have some, and it's in the final year of a student's program. And so being able to indicate to them, you must take this course this semester, it's not offered any other time, is really important, and information that's included in that roadmap. Lastly, we made sure that the roadmaps incorporate specific milestones, focusing on credit targets, advisement checkpoints, skill building as they go through their curriculum. And all of this, of course, was in an effort to prepare students for life post-graduation, making sure that they feel ready to take that next step and supported in what that next step might look like. I see something. So a question here. This is a great, I will say before I turn to what Zoe put in the chat. So those are kind of the big points that we have developed to share with you all. We're going to transition to a little bit of a discussion, but before I do that, I was going to see if there were questions or comments.
And I'll jump in one more time.
Yeah, thanks, Kristin.
The other piece that we haven't really talked about is that the roadmaps are intended to be a prototypical pathway. So it lays out a way that students can go from start to finish. It's not of course, the significant downside is that it's not individualized, that it's still up to the student with their advising team, their faculty mentors, their professional advisors. It's still up to the student and their advising team to individualize that. It would be great if this was an electronic tool that had all of that individualization built in. I think that would have huge advantages. There are tools in the future that could do that, but there's still an advantage to being able to see the whole map laid out, kind of like an actual map. It is good to see the whole map laid out, even if you're turn by turn, you want to change it a little bit here and there. The other piece that we haven't developed yet, the intention is also to develop roadmaps for transfer students that are 2-year roadmaps. We're starting with the 4-year, work out the bugs in the system, and then it should be a fairly straightforward process to develop 2-year ones after that. So hopefully that touches on Zoe's question. Zoe, it's as a prototypical map. When students come in with different math preparation, there would certainly be individual alterations that would need to be made, and that would be part of the advising conversations.
Yeah, I guess what my concern is how do we communicate to these students? It doesn't mean you're not good enough for this major just because you don't come in at the ideal starting point. And it also doesn't mean you should try to take a course that you're not prepared for in order to be on the ideal path, because it's better to take a course where you'll succeed.
Yeah, that's an excellent point.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Zoe. Are there any other questions or comments before we transition to the discussion that we had prepared? I feel like managing the presentation and the chat and all of that, I'm having flashbacks to our COVID online teaching days. It's a lot. Okay, so with that, Jackie, I think we're going to skip this if that's okay. I forgot that
sounds
we
good.
had
We
this.
kind of
Okay.
showcased the map.
Yeah, I think we've all got it. So the brainstorming that we wanted to do has to do with how we can best use these roadmaps to support student success. So how can programs best use curriculum and career roadmaps to support student success? We have a couple of ideas here on the slide. So first year they can be used for first year advisement to provide students a comprehensive overview of curriculum and engagement. Another example, a little bit more concrete, would be to review the roadmaps in a required junior level course to ensure that students understand the milestones towards graduation and connection to career. So what are some other ideas of how we might be able to use these programs or these roadmaps for our programs? You can raise your hand and share with the group. Lynn?
Yeah, I like the roadmaps a lot. I think they provide some basic guidance. One thing I would like to see in these things is requirements to talk to your faculty members. Like, that's the best advice that we can offer them is talk to us, and not just advisors, right? Just to anybody on campus. And maybe built in something into the roadmap that says, at this point, you should be talking with your faculty members.
Yeah.
You should be talking with them. And if your faculty advisor doesn't want to talk or can't talk, or I've met students who say, I only should be talking to my advisor. And I said, you can talk to anybody you want to, anybody.
Yeah. Yeah,
An open
absolutely.
door down the hall. Go talk to them. So maybe
Yeah,
have
I
that
think
built in.
that's really great. I'm thinking about psychology's roadmap, who I know in year one, and I think it may be semester one. So straight out of the gate, it could be semester two potentially, but I know it was in year one where one of the elements on the right hand side of their roadmap, so the career and experiential side, says just that. It encourages students to look at faculty members' websites and then to figure out who you want to work with and send them an email, and to arrange a meeting to kind of talk about that. I think you're absolutely right, Lynn. And like I said earlier, I think sometimes students are intimidated to take that type of initiative, especially in year one. But don't wait, right? Get after it as soon as you can, which I think is beneficial for faculty too, because then you are working with a student for longer than when you have the juniors and seniors. Thank you, Lynn. Other thoughts on this? Other ways these may be used?
Emily, can you mention the family that you talked to at open house?
Sure, yeah. So, last spring, at one of our many open houses, I was escorting a family from Shinneman to Cooper Dining Hall for lunch. And en route, one of the parents asked me if we had a document that laid out the courses that their student would be taking semester to semester for the program they were interested in. And I said, not at the moment, but we're in the process of putting those together and then putting them out. And so, as Kristin talked about earlier in the presentation, one way, another way that these roadmaps can be used is as a recruitment tool. And recruitment is a worthwhile endeavor in and of itself. We are all very well aware that recruitment is a priority. I also think that we could tie even that particular aspect of recruitment to student success, in that we want students who are coming to SUNY Oswego for particular programs, we want them to have a good sense of what that program entails before they get here, to make sure it is exactly the fit that they want, that we're going to be able to support them in the way that they need to be supported. So I think in that way, even as a recruitment tool, there's a connection there to student success. Um, so I'm seeing a few things in the chat. Lynn says that roadmap should also be included, about when and how to seek postgraduate fellowships like Fulbright. Lynn, I think that the anthropology may actually mention the Fulbright. I know a few of them did, so that should make your Fulbright heart very happy. So it is something that other people are thinking about, and I will add that I have a list of insider tip examples that some programs drew from, and I'll add that on there for sure. We're just about at time. Is there anybody else who wants to weigh in here? Kristin, Jackie?
I'll share into that. When I first came over to this complex in Roanoke Campus Center, we had developed things called My Plans, and it was for, each year. And unless it was part of like the first year residential experience in Johnson Hall, we didn't have a lot of engagement. So it definitely made my career coach heart happy. And Mallory's been around long enough to know about the My Plans too. But this is so much more structured and connected to the curriculum, to really demystify even that part of, students' journey.
while at Oswego and beyond too. So, as an undeclared advisor, I would have loved to have this as well, to have conversations with students and to kind of map it out and what that looks like as they're designing their way forward at Oswego and beyond too. So kudos to all the work of all the departments that they put in, intentional opportunities to engage and have some meaningful conversations along the way too. So shout out to all the departments and Emily and Kristin and everyone involved. And I know the Advisement Center did too, Corey Colbeck and their team. So thank you to all.
Thank you, Jackie. And I'll say that the intention is that again, these will be publicly available shortly before fall semester starts, because when all the revisions are done. Right now they're still open for revision. We'll lock them down so that they aren't constantly changing, with the intention to re-review at the department level every year. So we could also maintain a list of things that are suggestions and say, what if we do it this way? What if we do it this way? What if a department wants to add? We did look at, for example, including student learning outcomes on them, but some of the department's student learning outcomes are really long, like a whole page. We could include those, put them at the end maybe, so they don't get students confused.
Link to them.
Looking at the roadmap, link to them. But the intention is also that the posting version it would be downloadable for students so that they can download and edit as they want. Just the posted version wouldn't be editable. And I will say that the other partner that I didn't acknowledge is that we worked with members of the accessibility work group at the beginning in designing the template so that the document meets high accessibility standards as well. So thank you also to our partners there. And a special thank you to Emily for all of the work that she has been doing and going back and forth with the departments in improving and editing them.
Yes. Anything else? Okay. I think we're at time. I know John has a very quick turnover thing that he needs to do right now. So thank you all again for coming to the presentation, and look for these roadmaps everywhere at some point. Bye. Have a good afternoon. Enjoy the sun.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.